stack a reclaimer at Ridley, the transfer chute with a boom. They experienced no spills. The noise you hear is the wind, but hopefully it's going to blow us off of this thing. I'll try and zoom in. You can see the distance is fairly significant for a drop to the belt, but tremendous all the way along this belt. They stacked at 4,000 or 5,000 tons an hour, 6, but three feeder, which is an example of a rat hole, and we'll try and do a pan around the inside of the surge tank. You're looking at the Grizzly. Over to number 4 feeder. We'll zoom in once again. Hopefully this is a reasonably clear picture. I'll zoom back out of a rat hole, probably 200 or 300 tons around this feeder. We'll move around. Number 4 feeder on your left, and the rat hole or plug coal surrounding feeder number 2. And now we're going to look into number 1 feeder. This is the one that received the stainless steel lining, and the center feeder. Both have stainless steel. Both, after loading, have been self-cleaned. Nothing left within these feeders. To repeat for emphasis, probably 150 ton wrapped around the number 2 feeder is shown in this photo. Around to number 4, probably 200 ton or so wrapped around this feeder. Step over here back to the left. Number 3 feeder, again probably a couple hundred ton wrapped around. You can see the diameter of the opening, how closed off it is. And on last night's shift, this feeder here closed completely off. Fortunately, the foreman was able to unplug and get it running again, but we experienced high levels. There's the center feeder bowl, the vibrating cone in the center. All stainless steel, and you can almost see the perfect line of adhesion. This particular ridge of coal that goes from the top of the center feeder bowl, that's the end of the stainless steel. It's approximately 10 feet up, where it lips over and goes down that particular hole here. So the circumference, which should be equivalent to this circumference, and in fact the coal is trying to make its way through a much, much smaller diameter. And once that narrowed, it doesn't take much of a surge to completely close it off. Slightly better over here on number 2. Pan again around to the number 1 feeder. Completely. After a vessel completed loading. This is while loading the vessel Mangawa on the July 10th. The surge tank here, as you can see, is full right to the peak, right to the top. We almost tripped this high-level probe. A little bit more reclaim than we would have. We're going to go off and on with the video and show the emptying of this tank and how each feeder empties itself, or where coal sticks in rat holes. We'll do almost a simulated time-lapse photography. Not much movement. Coal right to the roof. This is number 3 feeder. Number 3 feeder completely closed off. And around the surge tank over here to number 2 feeder. And number 1 feeder, which is this hole here, which coal is flowing out of number 1 feeder. We'll do a time lapse as stated and watch the tank empty. Over here you can see the beginning of the coal, the hole feeding number 3 feeder. And after seeing that it's, well, discernible, but not a lot of flow going down through the hole, We'll swing over to the opposite side, which is number 1. This is the one lined with stainless steel. And hopefully you can see the significant differences to the size of the hole and the flow of coal that's going down through number 1 feeder. Here's a few minutes later, and we'll watch here, see if you can see some movement. You can see that the mound of coal still near the roof, feeding down. Number 3 feeder, not a lot of movement. Once again, we'll swing over the other side, and hopefully you can see the significant size and shape of the hole. Hopefully this gives a reasonable size picture as to the size of opening over the number 1 feeder. This is where stainless steel has been lined. And again, we're comparing to the feeder on the opposite side, number 3 feeder, and the fact that the hole is hardly developed on this side for the number 3. Just a moment or so again collapsed. Try and give a picture as to the size of the rim that's opening over the number 1 feeder. Again, going back the other side to the number 3 feeder. A hole developing, but certainly not to the same extent as number 1. This picture here is to show that there is some movement, the volume of coal. I have stopped the reclaim. Otherwise, with dust, we would never get these photos. And you begin to see the tank is starting to do some emptying out. This is Luscar coal and is flowing relatively well through the tank. Again, we'll take a picture here of number 3 feeder. Some movement of coal emptying out, but evidence of rat holing. Over the other side, you can see the mountain of coal in the distance. That's over number 4 feeder, and it appears at this point number 4 feeder may be closed right off, plugged at the bottom. The feeder's been on for some time and no movement of coal. The pile in the middle that has dropped, that was to the ceiling, is the center feeder. It's emptying out as expected. On the far right hand side, and not too bad a shape, is the number 2 feeder. And we'll swing around and pick up the number 1 feeder, and hopefully again we can get some sense as to how it's emptying out. You can see marks on the wall as it's starting to slide and do some release on the back side. And anticipated is that it will fully empty out as it does down to stainless steel. And we'll be able to, the camera is having problems focusing, but hopefully this shot shows up somewhat. I'll try and pick some light up here. Number 3 feeder on the left is rat hole. Whether it's severe or not, debatable. We'll see as it empties out. You can see over the other side, clearly the problem here, the focus is difficult because of the light and dust conditions. But number 4 feeder right at this moment is basically rat holed and closed right off. The flow on the opposite side, number 2, and in the center feeder is good. And over closer to the light, if this can show up. It may be hard to tell the depth, but there is a large opening in number 1, and we'll continue to monitor the collapsing of the coal. Okay, we've adjusted light here to see if we can pick up and get a better picture of the rat hole around number 3. We'll see if it does that much improved for looking over at number 4 feeder down into the center feeder itself. The vessel being loaded is 48 meters wide, and right now the ship loader feeders are operating slow rather than fast. 3 here again has some progress. As we go over to number 4, it's difficult for me to tell how well this picture is turning out, but number 4 feeder is solid, no coal flow through number 4 feeder at all. The center feeder is cleaning out nicely. Give you a sense as to how far it's come from the top of the ceiling, which is where we began the photos.
Watch your load again, Dave. I'm going to close my gate.
Over here, number 2 feeder in the distance. It's not bad. And we continue to monitor the size of hole and the good flow. This is number 1 feeder here is operating on slow because of trimmers, but continuing to empty nicely. Over that number 4 feeder, if we go back over and look at the mountain of coal trapped over it, probably 300 tons of coal that is plugged over the number 4 feeder. May have been too late to capture that moment, but the wall of number 1 feeder sloughed down, which is excellent. We'll slide over here. You begin to see the rim of the center feeder stainless steel bowl is starting to show up. Picture is blurred. I think the amount of dust in here combined with the darkness and the light reflection is creating some havoc. Hopefully this is a reasonable picture. Gambling the battery is going to survive, and we'll see if we can watch the exposure here of the center feeder bowl as it's emptying out. And you notice to the left, number 3, how much coal is still packed around it. Again, the huge wall of coal plugged over number 4, coal over number 2, and number 1 feeder directly below us.
Yeah, I'm opening my gate again, Dave.
This is where the idea of lining the feeder came from. If you watch the center feeder,
Hello, Spike.
and how it
What are
so
you doing
nicely
now,
empties
Arnie?
and cleans itself completely out.
In order for me to turn my trimmer in, so I had to close my gate because every time I tried it, it just drove the trimmer belt sideways.
From this picture, hopefully you can see over the number 3 feeder that there's still a lot of coal and the amount of wall sitting on the edge. And now under number 1, again, I'm not sure that the camera picks up the depth perception, but it is emptying out. The hole over number 1 is huge. There's some movement as it's sloughing down there now from below the feet. And we go over to the center feeder, and again we begin to see all the circumference of the stainless steel. See the emptying out of the center feeder. Center feeder continues to empty. Some will slough in from around. Number 1 feeder is having sloughing coming down off the walls. Number 4 feeder, if this picture is picking up the depth, is still plugged. There goes number 4 feeder now. It just collapsed. Some went into the center.
Yeah, just hold it there for a sec. I'll let that go. That's just a touch point.
And number 3 feeder, if this picture picks it up, has rat hole. Number 3 feeder here continues to have the rat hole. You can see that number 4 is now moving coal, but again a rat hole has formed. What you see here is the tip, the high part that bridges over to the number 2 feeder. The coal on the left top of the screen is coal glued on the wall of number 2 feeder. And the stainless you're seeing here is the coal slipping down into number 1 feeder. This is probably one of the best shots we're going to get as to how the coal sticks on the concrete and that's at the top left. And the coal that is continuing to go down the wall in number 1 feeder exposing the stainless. We'll come back in half a minute or so and see. What you're looking at here, if the light holds, is the tip of stainless on the opposite side. You can see it starting to become uncovered. Free flow of coal. Our center feeder vibrator at this particular moment is having to need a reset. That's why the center feeder bowl has now had a collapse and has got stainless covered over. There's the other ridge of the number 1 feeder. There's the stainless we showed earlier. You can begin to see the whole bowl.
Thanks, Mike.
Taking shape. Back looking at the emptying of number 1 feeder. Again, we're operating in slow because of being on trimmer. You can see the coal glued to the number 2 feeder and a rat hole.
Hello, Dave.
And there's number 1 feeder emptying out. Looking again at number 1 feeder, you can see the coal on the opposite side to the ridge. We're going to wrap around. You can see the other side of number 1 feeder. There's the rat hole in number 3. The amount of coal plugged around it. And back down looking at the emptying. Try and get a decent shot here with the light and dust. See number 1 again releasing all of its coal. And the various plugs and rat holes. Number 1 feeder. Difficult shots here because of the light and the autofocus. This is what I guess you'd call a thing of beauty, because if you look at the volume of coal that would stick and glue and rat hole and plug, this unaided is what's happening with the number 1 feeder as it continues to empty itself out. The advantages, of course, besides the put-through of the volume of coal, it's obvious that when emptying and running the surge tank out to a vessel, finishing parcels, change for surveys, 100% of the cargo would empty out of the tank if all 4 feeders were lined. We'll take you over and look at number 2 feeder. You can see the volume of coal still stuck in there. Hopefully the light is showing some depth perception. The opposite side to number 4. Some had broke free, but it's back badly rat holed. We'll try and come over and see.
Yeah, we're not getting nothing in the way of cargo. Did you want us to shut down and save the trimmers or what? No, I'll keep running. I think they're doing something in the surge tank there.
Rat hole.
Okay.
And there's the lip between 3 and number 1 feeder.